The wind howled through the ancient pines, surrounding the secluded estate of whispering pines, their branches murmuring secrets to the night. It was 1932, in the misty English countryside, where Sir Reginald Harrington lay lifeless in his study, a single gunshot wound piercing his temple. The revolver clutched in his rigid hand suggested suicide, but the locked door and shattered window pane whispered otherwise. As the clock struck midnight, a faint ethereal voice echoed from the woods, whispers that locals swore were the ghosts of the past. Enter Hercule Poirot, the meticulous Belgian detective summoned to unravel the enigma before the shadows claimed another soul. Chapter 1. Arrival at Whispering Pines. The train rattled through the damp English countryside, its whistle a mournful cry slicing through the fog of early autumn 1932. Hercule Poirot sat in the first-class carriage, his gloved hands folded neatly over the silver handle of his cane, his mustache a perfect crescent beneath sharp green eyes that missed nothing. Beside him, Captain Arthur Hastings fidgeted with his newspaper, the headlines about economic woes forgotten as he glanced out the window at the blur of skeletal trees. The journey to Eldridge Hollow was not one of leisure. It was a summons to a mystery that piqued Poirot's insatiable curiosity. A death cloaked in whispers, in a place where the very pines seemed to murmur secrets. "Mon ami," Poirot said, his voice soft yet precise. "You are restless. Is it the weather, or does the prospect of this case unsettle you?" His Belgian accent rolled smoothly, each word chosen with care. Hastings folded the paper with a sigh. "It's this place we're headed to, Poirot. Whispering Pines. Sounds like something out of a Gothic novel. And the telegram from Jap. A suicide that isn't a suicide? Gives me the creeps, if I'm honest." Poirot's lips twitched into a faint smile. "The creeps, Hastings. Mais non. It is the puzzle that excites the little gray cells. A man dead in a locked room, a gunshot, whispers in the night. This head intrigued. Cursed, you say? Tiens, Inspector. You know my views on such nonsense. Tell me of the facts, not the folklore." Jap grunted, leading them to a waiting car. "Facts, then. Sir Reginald, 62, wealthy as Croesus, owned half the steelworks in the north. Found last night by his housekeeper, Mrs. Croft, in a locked study. Key was inside, door bolted. Only oddity, a shattered window, glass inward, like someone broke in. Suicide note in his pocket. I cannot bear the whispers any longer. But his wife, Lady Evelyn, insists he wasn't the type. Motives? Plenty. His son Jonathan inherits the lot but owes money to some nasty lenders. The secretary, Clara Beaumont, was heard arguing with him days before. Dr. Elias Thorne, family physician, prescribed sedatives, maybe too many. And Mrs. Croft, loyal as she is, acts cagey. The car wound through misty lanes, the pines closing in like silent conspirators. Hastings shivered. "Whispers, Jap? You don't believe in ghosts, surely?" "Not ghosts," Jap replied. "But something's off. Locals say the pines have whispered since the Great War, tales of betrayal and lost souls. Harrington was obsessed with it, digging into old family records." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "A man obsessed with secrets often finds enemies. This betrayal, what is its nature?" Jap shrugged. "Some rot about a Harrington ancestor selling secrets to the Germans in 17, costing British lives. Old gossip, but Sir Reginald took it seriously." The car pulled up to Whispering Pines, a sprawling Gothic manor of weathered stone and creeping ivy. Its turrets pierced the fog, and its windows glowed like watchful eyes. The air carried the scent of damp earth and pine resin, and as Poirot stepped out, he paused, listening. A faint murmur rose from the trees, a low, sibilant sound, like voices just beyond comprehension. "Intéressant," he murmured. "The pines, they speak. But what do they say?" Lady Evelyn Harrington, late 20s, with a gambler's charm and shadowed eyes. Clara Beaumont, the secretary, a sharp-featured woman whose composure masked unease. Dr. Elias Thorne, a wiry physician with a nervous tic in his jaw, and Mrs. Agnes Croft, the housekeeper, a stout woman whose loyalty seemed tinged with fear. Jonathan rose, offering a handshake that lingered too long. "Monsieur Poirot, I've heard of your reputation. Father's death. It's a shock. He wasn't himself lately, but suicide? Never." Clara's gaze flickered to Jonathan, then away. "Sir Reginald was under strain," she said carefully. "Business pressures, perhaps." Dr. Thorne adjusted his spectacles. "He had heart trouble, but nothing to suggest despair. I prescribed mild sedatives, nothing more." Mrs. Croft wrung her hands. "He heard them, sir, the whispers. Night after night, out in the pines. Said they called his name." Poirot's mustache twitched. "Vraiment? And you, madame, have you heard these whispers?" She nodded, pale. "Since I was a girl here. They say the pines guard the secrets of the betrayed." Hastings leaned close to Poirot. "Ghosts, Poirot? This place is eerie enough for it." "No, no," Poirot whispered. "Ghosts do not shoot revolvers. But the human heart, it hides much." Lady Evelyn guided them to the study, a room of dark oak and leather-bound books. The desk was cluttered with papers. A will naming Jonathan sole heir, ledgers showing business losses, and a cryptic note in Sir Reginald's hand. "The pines know your sin." The chalk outline of his body marked the rug near a shattered window. Poirot knelt, examining the glass. "Curieux. The shards fall inward, suggesting entry. Yet the door was locked, the key inside. And the revolver?" Japp pointed to a table. "Bagged as evidence. Only Reginald's prints, wiped clean otherwise." Poirot's gay whine. Poirot, ever the observer, noted every gesture, every pause. "Madame," he addressed Lady Evelyn, "your husband's interest in the war, did it cause disputes?" She hesitated. "Reginald found a diary in the attic from 1917. It spoke of a Harrington betraying comrades. He feared scandal if it surfaced." Jonathan slammed his glass down. "Nonsense. Father was paranoid, digging up old ghosts." "Or living ones," Clara murmured, earning a glare. As dessert was served, a scream shattered the silence. Mrs. Croft in the garden, pointing at a figure in the mist. Poirot rushed out, lantern in hand, but found only footprints leading to the pines. And then nothing. The whispers swelled. "The truth lies buried." Hastings clutched his coat. "Poirot, this place, it's alive with secrets." "Oui, my friend," Poirot replied, his voice steady. "But secrets have masters, and I, Hercule Poirot, will find them." As the night deepened, the manor seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the next move in a deadly game. Chapter 2. the scene of the crime. The heavy oak door to Sir Reginald Harrington's study creaked open, with a sound that echoed like a reluctant confession, admitting Hercule Poirot and his companions into the heart of the mystery. The room was a sanctum of intellectual seclusion, a testament to the deceased man's refined tastes, and perhaps his hidden torments. Bookshelves lined the walls from floor to ceiling, their dark mahogany frames groaning under the weight of leather-bound volumes, tomes on industrial engineering, classical history, and, intriguingly, several on the occult and folklore of the English countryside. Titles such as Ghosts of the British Isles and Echoes of the Great War, Betrayals and Hauntings caught Poirot's eye immediately, their spines worn as if consulted often in the dead of night. A large walnut desk dominated the center of the room, its surface a chaotic tableau of papers, inkstands, and a half-empty decanter of brandy. The air hung thick with the mingled scent. Breathe secrets. We must listen to its whispers, not those of the pines outside. He moved first to the desk, his small, precise fingers sifting through the scattered documents. A will, penned in Sir Reginald's elegant script, named Jonathan Harrington as the primary beneficiary, with provisions for Lady Evelyn and a modest bequest to the household staff. Business ledgers revealed recent financial strains, investments gone sour in the wake of the economic depression, but nothing overtly damning. Then, tucked beneath a blotter, the cryptic note, "The pines know your sin." Poirot's mustache twitched. Intéressant. A confession? A warning? Or a red herring planted for our benefit? Inspector Japp, pacing the room with his characteristic bulldog energy, cleared his throat. Suicide note was in his pocket, Poirot. I cannot bear the whispers any longer. Fits the bill, doesn't it? Man driven mad by ghosts or guilt. But the family's kicking up a fuss, say he was as steady as a rock. And that window, he nodded toward the tall arched pane to the left of the desk, its lower half shattered, shards glittering on the rug like fallen stars. The wind from outside whistled through the jagged hole, carrying the perpetual murmur of the pines. Poirot knelt gracefully beside the window, his eyes narrowing as he examined the glass fragments. The break was clean but irregular, with the pieces pointing inward, suggesting force applied from the exterior. "Observe, Hastings, observe," he instructed, his tone that of a professor unveiling a theorem. The glass falls inward, as if an intruder sought entry. Yet the door was locked from within, the key in the lock, and no signs of forced entry there. Curieux. If suicide, why break the window? A suicide does not seek to stage a burglary. He reached out, careful not to disturb the evidence, and traced a finger along the sill. No footprints in the dust outside the window, only the undisturbed soil of the garden beds visible through the gap. But something caught his eye, a faint smear on the frame, like a glove mark, and a single pine needle, fresh and green. Victim, in his final moments, takes the time to polish his instrument of death. Absurd. No, this is the work of another hand, one that sought to erase its touch. He set the bag down and moved to the armchair, envisioning the scene. Sir Reginald sits here, perhaps reading or writing, a sedative in his evening tea, mild enough to dull the senses but not arouse suspicion. Then the killer enters. How? We shall discover. A shot from close range, the body arranged, the note planted. But the window, the window is the key. Japp stopped pacing and leaned against the desk. Motives aplenty if it's murder. Jonathan, the son. He's up to his neck in gambling debts. inherit the estate, and poof, problem solved. Alibis shaky. He claims a poker game in the village, but the barkeep story wavers. Clara Beaumont, the secretary. 28, efficient as a machine. But she was overheard arguing with Harrington about secrets 2 days prior. Something about unpaid loans she took from him. Dr. Thorne prescribed those sedatives. Maybe he slipped in an overdose, disguised as suicide. And Mrs. Croft, the housekeeper. She's been with the family forever, but acts like she's hiding something. Says she heard the whispers calling her name that night, right before the shot. Poirot absorbed this information, his little gray cells whirring. Suspects, yes, but we must not rush to judgment. Each has motive, but opportunity, means. Let us explore. He turned to the fireplace, a grand marble hearth where embers still smoldered faintly, despite the chill of the day. Kneeling once more, he sifted through the ashes with a poker, revealing charred fragments of paper, edges of what might have been letters or documents. A fire in autumn, not for warmth, I think. To destroy evidence. Tiens, look here. A scrap with ink. The betrayal in the trenches. He pocketed the fragment. Click. And Clara Beaumont entered, her heels clicking sharply on the hardwood floor. She was a woman of striking poise, her dark hair bobbed in the modern fashion, her eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. But now, her face was pale, her hands clasped tightly. Monsieur Poirot, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just passing by. Inspector Japp mentioned you were examining the study. Pas de problème, mademoiselle, Poirot replied graciously, though his eyes studied her intently. You are the secretary, yes? Clara Beaumont. Perhaps you can assist. Sir Reginald. Did he confide in you about these whispers? She hesitated, glancing at the chalk outline before meeting his gaze. He did, monsieur. For weeks he'd pace here at night, staring out that window. Said the voices accused him of sins he didn't commit. Family sins from the war. He was researching it, you see, for a memoir or something. But that night, I was in my room, typing correspondence, but I heard a noise, like glass breaking. Then, a shadow in the pines outside. Tall, cloaked in mist. It moved toward the house, then vanished like smoke when I looked again. Japp raised an eyebrow. You didn't mention this before, Miss Beaumont. I was frightened, she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. Thought it was my imagination. But now, with Sir Reginald gone, Poirot nodded sympathetically. Fear is natural, mademoiselle. But details. The shadow. Was it a man? A woman? Any distinguishing feature? She shook her head. Too dark, too misty. But it had purpose, monsieur. Like it was watching. Merci, Poirot said, his mind cataloguing this new piece. A shadow. Another layer to the enigma. Was it the killer returning to ensure silence, or a fabrication to divert suspicion? As Clara excused herself, Poirot returned to his examination, tapping the walls methodically. The room's acoustics were peculiar. Sounds from outside seemed amplified. Window. They point to a killer close by. Clever, but not infallible. He glanced at the clock on the mantel, its hands ticking inexorably toward evening. We have much to do before night falls. The pines will whisper louder then, and so will the truth. Outside, the drizzle had turned to a steady rain, pattering against the panes like impatient fingers. The group exited the study, locking it behind them. But as they did, that floorboard creaked again, louder, as if protesting their departure. Was it the house settling, or something, or someone, stirring in the shadows below? The mystery of the scene had only begun to unfold, and Poirot knew that the real revelations lay hidden, waiting to be pried loose like that stubborn board. The night deepened, and with it, the sense of impending danger, as if the very walls of Whispering Pines held their breath, anticipating the next twist in this deadly tale. Chapter 3. Interrogating the Air. The drawing room of Whispering Pines was a study in faded grandeur, its high ceilings adorned with intricate plasterwork, now tinged with the patina of time. Heavy velvet drapes framed tall windows, through which the gray light of a rain-soaked afternoon filtered, casting long shadows across the polished parquet floor. A fire crackled in the marble hearth, its warmth doing little to dispel the chill of suspicion that hung over the gathered company. Hercule Poirot sat in a high-backed armchair, his posture impeccable, his green eyes darting from face to face as he sipped a delicate porcelain cup of tea. Captain Arthur Hastings stood by the mantel, his hands clasped behind his back, while Inspector Japp paced near the door, his boots scuffing softly against the rug. The focus of their attention was Jonathan Harrington, the prodigal son and heir to the Harrington fortune, who lounged on a brocade sofa, a cigarette dangling from his lips. His boyish charm was marred by worry lines etched into his brow, and his fingers twitched as he flicked ash into a crystal tray. "Monsieur Harrington," Poirot began, his voice smooth as velvet yet edged with steel, leg over the other. "In the village, at the Red Lion pub. Poker game with some locals. Old Tom the barkeep can vouch for me, as can a couple of farmers. Left around 11, back here by 1:30. Father was already dead when I returned. Mrs. Croft was screaming the house down." Japp interjected, his tone gruff. "The barkeep's story doesn't quite hold, Harrington. Says you stepped out for a breather around 10:30. Nobody saw you for a good 20 minutes. Plenty of time to slip back here, wouldn't you say?" Jonathan's jaw tightened, but his voice remained steady. "A breather, yes. Smoked a cigarette out back, cleared my head. The game was heated. I was losing. Check the alley if you like. Cigarette butts should still be there." Poirot's eyes gleamed with interest. "Tiens, we shall verify. But let us speak of motives. Your debts, to whom are they owed, and how pressing are they?" Jonathan hesitated, his gaze flickering to the window where the pines swayed, their branches tapping like impatient fingers against the glass. The whispers were faint now, muffled by the rain, but their presence seemed to linger in the room. "London lenders mostly. Rough sorts, I'll admit. I owe a few thousand. Nothing the estate can't cover now. Father was going to bail me out, but he wanted me to sweat first. Said it'd build character." Hastings, unable to resist, leaned forward. "And these lenders, any of them desperate enough to threaten your father? Or you, perhaps, to force his hand?" Jonathan's laugh was hollow. "They're not the murdering type, Captain. They'd rather break my knees than touch Father. Besides, his death doesn't cancel the debt, it just makes it easier to pay." Poirot set his teacup down with a delicate clink, his fingers steepled. "Intéressant. And these whispers your father spoke of, the voices in the pines. Did they trouble you too? Jonathan stubbed out his cigarette, his movements sharp. Old tales, nothing more. Father was obsessed. Will, did you know its contents? Jonathan nodded, his expression darkening. He showed it to me last month. I get the estate, the factories, the lot, minus a few bequests to Mother and the staff. He was rewriting it, though. Said he might add conditions, make me prove myself. Never got the chance. Jap snorted. Convenient, that. A new will could have cut you out. Gives you a tidy motive, lad. I didn't kill him, Jonathan snapped, his voice rising. He stood pacing to the window where the rain streaked the glass like tears. The whispers outside grew louder, a sibilant chorus. Betrayer. Justice. He spun back, his face pale. You hear that? The pines. They're relentless. Father said they called his name night after night. Maybe they drove him to it. Poirot rose, his movements fluid, and approached the window, listening intently. The pines, they speak, but they are not judges. They echo what is fed to them, by wind, by trickery, or by guilt. Tell me, Monsieur Harrington, have the whispers ever called your name? Jonathan froze, his eyes darting to the floor. Once or twice, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. But it's just the wind, isn't it? Old houses, old trees, they play tricks. Tricks, Poirot agreed, though his tone suggested otherwise. But the human heart plays tricks of its own. We shall speak again, monsieur. As Jonathan excused himself, citing a headache, Hastings whispered to Poirot. He's hiding something, isn't he? That pause when you asked about the whispers. It's as if he's heard more than he's letting on. Poirot nodded, his expression inscrutable. The young Harrington is a man of secrets, Hastings. But are they secrets of murder, or merely shame? We must dig deeper. The investigation continued with the search of Jonathan's quarters, a spacious suite on the second floor overlooking the pines. The room was a bachelor's haven, rustling like the pines themselves. Monsieur Poirot, she said, her voice steady but her eyes betraying a flicker of anxiety. I couldn't help overhearing. You're questioning Jonathan. He's a reckless boy, but he loved his father. If you seek the truth, look to the diary Reginald found. It changed him, made him distant, fearful. He spoke of treason, of a Harrington who betrayed comrades in 1917. He believed it would ruin us if it came to light. Poirot bowed slightly. Madame, your candor is appreciated. This diary, where might we find it? In the attic, I think, she replied. He spent hours there, reading, muttering about atoning for sins. I thought it nonsense, but... She trailed off, her gaze drifting to the window where the whispers seemed to mock her composure. Sins. Revealed. As she left, Jap muttered, She's holding back, Poirot. Servants whisper about her and Dr. Thorne, late-night meetings, hushed voices. If Reginald found out, maybe she had reason to silence him. Peut-être, Poirot conceded. But we must not leap to conclusions. The diary, the debts, the whispers, they form a tapestry, and we have only threads. The day waned, and the rain intensified, hammering the manor like a judge's gavel. Poirot led Hastings and Jap to the attic, a dusty labyrinth of crates and cobwebs lit by a single flickering bulb. Among Sir Reginald's papers they found a leather-bound diary, its pages yellowed with age. Entries from 1917 detailed a Harrington ancestor, Captain Edmund, who allegedly sold troop movements to the enemy for a fortune, leading to a massacre. "Mon Dieu," Poirot whispered. "A legacy of betrayal. This is what Sir Reginald feared, and what someone wished to bury." As they descended, a scream pierced the air, Mrs. Croft in the garden below, pointing at a figure in the mist. Poirot rushed to the window, lantern in hand, but the figure vanished into the pines, leaving only footprints thick with the scent of aged leather and dust. And the only sound was the steady patter of rain against the leaded windows, punctuated by the distant, eerie whispers of the pines outside. Hercule Poirot sat at a long oak table, his gloved hands folded neatly, his green eyes fixed on Clara Beaumont, who perched opposite him, her posture rigid, as if bracing for an assault. Her dark bobbed hair framed a face that was both youthful and guarded, her wire-rimmed glasses catching the flicker of the candelabrum between them. Captain Arthur Hastings hovered near a shelf, pretending to examine a book on botany, while Inspector Japp stood by the door, his arms crossed, his expression one of barely concealed impatience. The clock on the mantel ticked toward late afternoon, its rhythm a reminder that time was slipping away, much like the truth in this tangled case. "Mademoiselle Beaumont," Poirot began, his voice a measured blend of courtesy and probing intent. "You are, sans doute, a woman of precision. As Sir Reginald's secretary, you were privy to his thoughts, his papers, perhaps his secrets. Yet I sense there is much you have not shared. Tell me, what was your relationship with your employer? And what did you know of his fears?" Clara's fingers tightened around the leather-bound notebook she clutched like a talisman. "Sir Reginald trusted me with his correspondence, his schedules, his research," she said, her voice steady, but with a faint tremor. "I typed his letters, organized his files. He was a brilliant man, but lately, he was preoccupied. Paranoid, even. He locked away documents, spoke of threats, enemies from his past, or the family's past. I tried to reassure him, but he wouldn't listen." Poirot's mustache twitched, a sign of his mind at work. "Tiens, paranoia is a powerful force. And these documents, what were they? Business matters? Or something more personal?" She hesitated, her eyes flicking to the wind forward. "A loan unpaid, and now he's dead, leaving you free of the debt. Convenience, eh? And your alibi, typing alone in your room? Nobody heard that typewriter, Miss Beaumont." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "I was working late, Inspector. The house was quiet. Perhaps the rain drowned out the sound. I heard the shot around 11, then Mrs. Croft's scream. I ran to the study, but it was locked." Poirot leaned forward, his eyes like twin lanterns piercing the fog of her words. "Curieux, mademoiselle. You speak of loyalty, yet there is a shadow in your story. You mentioned a shadow in the pines, seen the night of the murder. Could it have been someone you know? Jonathan Harrington, perhaps? There are whispers, forgive the term, of a connection between you two." Clara's face paled, her hands trembling slightly as she set the notebook down. Jonathan? No, monsieur, that's nonsense. He's a friend, nothing more. We've spoken, of course. He's charming but reckless. I saw no one clearly that night. The shadow was just there, moving toward the pines, then gone. Vraiment? Poirot's voice was soft, but his gaze was unrelenting. And yet love, or its complications, can drive many deeds. Let us explore further. He rose, gesturing for Hastings and Japp to follow him to Clara's office, a small room off the library where she conducted her work. The space was orderly, with a typewriter, neatly stacked papers, and a small desk lamp casting a warm glow. Poirot's fingers danced over the desk, pausing at a locked drawer. Pardon, mademoiselle, but may we? Clara hesitated, then produced a key with a reluctant nod. The drawer revealed a trove of letters, not business correspondence, but personal ones, written in Jonathan's careless scrawl. They spoke of affection, promises of a future, and hints of a plan to secure their freedom. One letter read, "Father's obsession will ruin us all unless we act." Poirot's eyebrow arched. Mon Dieu, crisp, but a faint misalignment caught his eye, a quirk in the letter E that matched a memo found in the study. You typed late, you say, yet this machine has not been used since yesterday morning. Curieux. Clara's eyes widened, but she said nothing, her silence louder than any protest. Poirot moved to the window which overlooked the pines, their branches swaying like accusing fingers. The whispers were clearer now, almost articulate. The truth lies. He noted a faint scratch on the windowsill, as if something heavy had been dragged across it. A gramophone, perhaps, or a tool to amplify sound. Their investigation was interrupted by Dr. Elias Thorne, who entered with a medical bag, his spectacles fogging slightly from the damp. Monsieur Poirot, I heard you were questioning Clara. She's a good woman, just caught in this wretched house's drama. I've come to check on Mrs. Croft. She's shaken after last night's scare. Poirot's gaze shifted to Thorne, noting the nervous tick in his jaw. Merci, doctor. And you, your sedatives for Sir Reginald. Were they perhaps stronger than prescribed? A test of his teacup might reveal traces. Thorne's face reddened. I prescribed mild doses for insomnia, nothing more. If there's poison, it wasn't from me. His hands trembled as he adjusted his bag, and Poirot's eyes narrowed at the sight of a small vial of herbs, unusual for a physician's kit. Interessant, Poirot murmured. We shall speak soon, doctor. As Thorne left, Hastings whispered, He's nervous, Poirot. And those herbs, could they be for poisoning? Or something to fake the whispers, like Clara suggested? Peut-être, Poirot replied, his mind racing. But let us follow another thread. He led them to the pines where Clara's shadow had vanished. The ground was soft from rain, and footprints, small, likely a woman's, led to a hidden glade. There the earth was freshly disturbed as if recently dug. Poirot knelt, probing with a stick, but found nothing buried. Yet a glint caught his eye. A button. Attic. It mentions Clara handling sensitive documents. Could she have betrayed him? Poirot took the diary, its pages brittle with age. Merci, madame. Every piece brings us closer. The entries confirmed Clara's role in transcribing, but also hinted at her unease. She had written a note to Sir Reginald, begging forgiveness for indiscretions. With Jonathan, or something else? As evening descended, the rain ceased, leaving a heavy silence broken only by the pines. Poirot stood by the library window, the button in his hand, his mind weaving threads. Clara's letters, the diary, The wire. The shadow. The secretary holds secrets, he murmured to Hastings. But whose? Hers or another's? The net tightens, but the fish is clever. A sudden crash echoed from the hall, a vase shattered by an unseen hand. Rushing out, they found Mrs. Croft, pale and trembling. "It moved," she gasped. "Something in the shadows." The whispers roared outside. Liar. Exposed. Poirot's eyes gleamed. The game was escalating, and the killer was near, watching, waiting, weaving a web of deception that only his little gray cells could unravel. Chapter 5. The Doctor's Dilemma. The morning mist clung to Whispering Pines like a shroud, curling around the ancient trees and seeping through the cracks of the manor's stone facade. Inside the breakfast room was a study in strained civility, its long mahogany table set with fine china that gleamed under the chandelier's muted glow. Hercule Poirot sat at one end, his breakfast untouched save for a single croissant, which he dissected with surgical precision. His green eyes, sharp as ever, observed the assembled company. Lady Evelyn Harrington, her composure a fragile mask. Jonathan Harrington, nursing a hangover with black coffee. Clara Beaumont, her gaze fixed on her plate. And Mrs. Agnes Croft, hovering with the silver coffee pot, her hands trembling slightly. The absence of Dr. Elias Thorne was conspicuous, and Poirot had requested his, betraying a man accustomed to authority, but now on edge. The tick in his jaw was more pronounced, a telltale sign of unease that Poirot noted with interest. "Oui, doctor," Poirot replied, rising with a courteous nod. "Please, be seated. We have much to discuss regarding Sir Reginald's health, and perhaps his death." He gestured to a plush armchair, its velvet worn but regal, and sat opposite, his hands folded neatly over his cane. Thorne settled uneasily, his bag on his lap like a shield. "I've told Inspector Japp everything. Sir Reginald had a heart condition, mild angina, managed with rest and medication. I prescribed sedatives for his insomnia, which had worsened in recent months. He complained of the whispers in the pines, said they kept him awake. But suicidal? Never. He was a fighter." Poirot's mustache twitched, a subtle signal of his skepticism. "Interessant. And these sedatives? Mild, you say? Yet a man is found dead, a revolver in hand, but perhaps dulled by something stronger. Tell me, doctor, what was in those pills?" Thorne's face reddened, his fingers tightening on the bag. "Nitrazepam, a standard dose. I checked his chart. Nothing excessive. If you're suggesting poison, I resent the implication. I've served the Harringtons for 20 years. Japp stepped forward, his voice gruff. "Resent all you like, Thorne. We found traces of sedative in his teacup, more than your standard dose. And you were in the village that night, but your patient visit ended at 10:15. The murder happened around 11. Plenty of time to slip back here." Thorne's tic intensified, his spectacles glinting as he adjusted them. "I was delayed, Inspector. Old Mrs. Harrow had a coughing fit. I stayed to monitor her. By the time I returned, the house was in chaos. Mrs. Croft screaming about a body. Check with Mrs. Harrow, she'll confirm." Poirot leaned forward, his gaze piercing. "Peut-être, doctor, now. And she's no fool." Poirot's eyes gleamed, cataloging every word, every gesture. "Vraiment? Yet debt can drive a man to desperate acts. Let us examine your bag, doctor. Those herbs we saw yesterday. Unusual for a physician, no? Thorn hesitated, then opened the bag with a reluctant sigh, revealing vials, bandages, and a small packet of dried herbs. Valerian and chamomile, he said defensively. For calming teas, nothing sinister. I experiment with natural remedies, Sir Reginald approved. Poirot examined a vial, sniffing it delicately. Curieux? A sedative in tea, a gunshot to mask it. We shall test these, Doctor. He handed the packet to Jap, who bagged it with a scowl. Their conversation was interrupted by a knock, and Mrs. Croft entered, her face pale. Monsieur Poirot, I heard the whispers again last night, clear as day. They said poison. I'm frightened, sir. Her hands wrung her apron, her eyes darting to Thorn. Poirot's expression softened, but his mind was relentless. Merci, madame. Your observation is noted. The whispers, they accuse, but they are not spirits. We shall find their source. After dismissing Mrs. Croft, Poirot led Hastings and Jap to the attic, where the diary Lady Evelyn mentioned lay among Sir Reginald's papers. Its brittle pages, dated 1917, recounted Captain Edmund Harrington's betrayal, selling troop movements to the Germans, resulting in a massacre. One entry read, Edmund's sin haunts us still. The pines speak of justice. Poirot's fingers traced the words. Mon Dieu, a legacy of guilt. Sir Reginald sought to expose it, but someone wished it buried. Was it you, Doctor? Fearing scandal? Thorn, who had followed at Jap's insistence, protested. I knew nothing of the diary. My concern was Reginald's health, not his family's past. Hastings whispered to Poirot. He's shaky, but is it guilt or fear? Those herbs could be a cover for something stronger, like what killed Sir Reginald. Poirot nodded, his mind doing. Footsteps echoed in the halls, swift, retreating. Poirot, Hastings, and Jap gave chase, their lanterns casting wild shadows. The trail led to the pines, where a figure vanished into the mist, dropping a syringe in the mud. Poirot retrieved it, his gloved fingers careful. Tiens, a medical tool. Yours, Doctor? Thorn, who had joined them, gasped. Not mine. I swear it. Someone's framing me. Jap seized the syringe, his eyes narrowing. We'll test it for prints and contents. If it's poison, Thorn, you're in deep. Poirot's voice was calm but firm. Patience, Inspector. The syringe is a clue, but not their whole story. The whispers, the diary, the debts. They point to a web, and the spider is among us. As they returned to the manor, the storm raged, lightning illuminating the pines like accusing fingers. In the parlor, Poirot sat, the syringe in an evidence bag, his mind racing. The doctor is a piece of the puzzle, he told Hastings, but not the whole. His debts, his herbs, his alibi, they waver, but so do others. Clara's letters, Jonathan's bracelet, Lady Evelyn's diary. Each hides a truth. A sudden scream from the garden. Mrs. Croft again, pointing at a shadow in the storm. It's back, she cried. Poirot rushed out, but the figure was gone, leaving only a torn scrap of fabric caught on a branch, navy blue, like the button from the glade. Mon Dieu, Poirot whispered. The killer grows careless, or bold. The whispers roared. Truth. Uncovered. The manor seemed to close in, its walls echoing with secrets. Poirot's eyes gleamed in the lantern light. The doctor's dilemma is but one thread, he said. Tomorrow we pull harder. The pines will speak, and the murderer will answer. Chapter 6. Red Herrings in the Mist. The dawn broke over whispering pines with a reluctant light, the mist weaving through the ancient trees like a living thing, cloaking the manor in an ethereal veil. Captain Arthur Hastings stood by the window, his gaze fixed on the pines, their branches swaying as if beckoning. Inspector Japp, ever restless, paced near the door, his notebook bulging with scribbled clues. The murder of Sir Reginald Harrington, shot in a locked study, a shattered window, a cryptic note, had grown more tangled with each revelation. The syringe found in the pines, the diary of wartime betrayal, the whispers that haunted the estate, all pointed to a killer who thrived on deception. Poirot's little gray cells were now focused on unraveling the web of red herrings that threatened to obscure the truth. "Mes amis," Poirot began, his voice cutting through the tension like a scalpel. "The case grows complex, but not impenetrable. The scene of the crime tells us much. A gunshot, yes, but with traces of sedative in the victim's tea. A locked room, yet a window broken inward. Whispers that accuse, yet no ghosts walk these halls. We must separate fact from fiction, truth from trickery." Japp stopped pacing, his eyes narrowing. "Ballistics came back, Poirot. The revolver was fired from a distance, 3 to 4 feet, not point blank. Rules out suicide. It's murder, plain as day. The question is, who pulled the trigger?" Poirot nodded, his fingers steepled. "Précisément, Inspector. And the red herrings, they multiply. Let us begin with a visit to Mrs. Croft. Her fear of the whispers, her loyalty to the family. Perhaps they hide a deeper truth. They found the housekeeper in the kitchen, kneading dough with a vigor that belied her age. Her stout frame was hunched, her eyes red-rimmed, as if she hadn't slept. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, wiping flour from her hands. "I've served the Harringtons for 30 years. Sir Reginald was kind, generous, a good master. But those pines..." She shuddered, glancing at the window where the trees loomed. "They demand justice for the betrayed. I heard them last night. Clear as you please. Poison," murmured, his eyes narrowing. "Nerves can be a convenient excuse, no? We shall return to this." He turned to Hastings. "Let us revisit Jonathan's room. The letters, the bracelet. Perhaps more lies await." Jonathan's quarters were as they'd left them, a bachelor's chaos of racing forms, empty bottles, and tailored suits. But a new discovery awaited. A bloody glove tucked beneath a pile of newspapers. Japp seized it, his face grim. "Harrington's blood, I'd wager. Planted, you think?" Poirot examined the glove, noting its size, too small for Jonathan's hands. "Curieux. A man's glove, but perhaps worn by another. A woman, maybe? Or a deliberate misdirection?" He pocketed it for analysis, his mind racing. "Jonathan swears innocence, yet clues accumulate. Let us test another thread." They sought Clara Beaumont in the library, where she was sorting Sir Reginald's papers, her movements precise, but her eyes shadowed. "Mademoiselle," Poirot said, "you suggested Dr. Thorne might have tampered with sound, faked the whispers. An intriguing theory. Have you evidence?" Clara hesitated, setting down a ledger. "I heard him once, in his room, tinkering with the gramophone. He said it was for experiments, but it was odd, crackling sounds, like voices. And he was always in the pines, collecting herbs. Maybe he used a device to scare Sir Reginald, drive him to despair." Poirot's mustache twitched. Intéressant. A gramophone to mimic ghosts? Let us test this. He led them to the glade, where the wire from the previous day's search still trailed into a tree hollow. Kneeling, he probed the earth, finding fresh scratches but no device. Removed, perhaps, he mused. But the wire. It leads somewhere. Following it through the underbrush, they found a small clearing, where a crude, speaker-like contraption lay hidden under leaves, a makeshift amplifier, its wires frayed but functional. Jap whistled. Clever beggar. Play a record of the truth, buried deep. Poirot led a search of the glade, digging where the earth was disturbed. After an hour, they unearthed a metal box, rusted but sealed, containing wartime letters, proof of Captain Edmund Harrington's betrayal, naming his accomplice, a family servant, Agnes Croft's ancestor. Mon Dieu, Poirot said. Mrs. Croft's fear. It is not of ghosts, but of exposure. Hastings gasped. She knew. And killed to protect a family's name? Pas si vite, Poirot cautioned. The letters are a clue, but the glove, the syringe, the whispers, they point elsewhere. A web of deception. The manor grew quiet, but tension crackled like the fire in the hearth. Poirot gathered the suspects in the drawing room, laying out the glove and letters. Each of you, he said, has secrets. Jonathan, your debts and bracelet. Clara, your letters. Thorn, your herbs. Croft, your ancestors' shame. But one of you weaves these red herrings to hide murder. Jonathan protested. That glove's not mine. Someone's framing me. Clara pointed at Thorn. He's the one with the gramophone. Ask him. Thorn shook his head. I'm no technician. Those herbs are medicinal, nothing more. Mrs. Croft wept. The letters. I knew of them, but I'd never kill Sir Reginald. He was kind. Poirot's gaze was unrelenting. Silence, please. The truth is near, but cloaked in lies. As he spoke, a shadow moved outside, fleeting but deliberate. Jap rushed to the window, but it vanished into the pines. The whispers roared. Reveal. The liar. Back in the study, Poirot examined the safe again, noting a faint scratch. A forced entry? The thief was skilled, he murmured, but not perfect. He turned to Hastings. Tomorrow, we confront the shadows. The killer believes they've outwitted us, but the pines, they see all. The night deepened, the manor creaking under the weight of its secrets. Poirot stood alone, the letters in hand, his mind a whirl of clues. The glove. Deception. Captain Arthur Hastings stood to his left, his hands clasped behind his back, his face a mixture of awe and apprehension. Inspector Jap, ever the practical man, leaned against a bookcase, his notebook tucked away, his gaze darting between the suspects seated before them. The suspects, Lady Evelyn Harrington, Jonathan Harrington, Clara Beaumont, Dr. Elias Thorne and Mrs. Agnes Croft, sat in a semicircle, their expressions a gallery of unease. Lady Evelyn, in her black silk dress, maintained a regal poise, though her fingers twisted a lace handkerchief. Jonathan slouched, his eyes bloodshot from sleeplessness and whiskey. Clara clutched her notebook, her glasses slipping as she avoided eye contact. Thorne fidgeted, his medical bag on the floor, his tic more pronounced than ever. Mrs. Croft, her apron discarded for a somber gray dress, sat with her hands folded, her lips trembling as if on the verge of confession. Outside, the pines whispered relentlessly, their murmurs seeping through the windows. Liar. Reveal. The storm had passed, but the air remained heavy, charged with the promise of revelation or retribution. Mes amis, Poirot began, his voice a measured cadence that silenced the room. The little gray cells have pondered long on this affair. Sir Reginald Harrington lies dead, a bullet in his temple. In a study locked from within, a window shattered inward, a note proclaiming despair. Yet the facts, they scream murder. A sedative in his tea, a revolver fired from a distance, whispers that haunt like ghosts. We have clues, a diary of wartime betrayal, a bloody glove, a syringe, a button, letters of love and debt. And now, we gather to unravel this web of deception. Jap stepped forward, holding up the glove from Jonathan's room. This was found hidden, stained with Harrington's blood. Care to explain, young man? Jonathan's face flushed, his voice rising. It's not mine, is singular. Let us begin with the scene. The study. Locked, yet accessible. Observe. He moved to a bookshelf, its dark wood carved with ivy motifs, and pressed a hidden panel. With a soft click, it swung inward, revealing a narrow passage, its walls damp and cobwebbed. A collective gasp rose from the suspects. Voila, a secret way from the pines to the study. Footprints found within match your shoes, Dr. Thorne. Thorne leapt to his feet, his face ashen. I used it, yes, for private meetings with Lady Evelyn, to discuss her health. But not murder. I was in the village when the shot was fired. Lady Evelyn's composure cracked, her voice sharp. How dare you, Elias? Those meetings were professional, nothing more. Poirot's eyes twinkled. Peut-être, madame, but secrets breed suspicion. Jonathan, your letters to Clara. Love or blackmail? They speak of acting to secure freedom. Explain. Jonathan ran a hand through his hair, his voice desperate. They were foolish, written in a drunken haze. Clara and I, we flirted, but it was nothing serious. I never meant harm to father. Clara's voice was cold. You wanted the money, Jonathan. You knew the safe's combination. Did you steal the diary's pages to sell? Jonathan's eyes blazed. And you? You typed his memoir, knew his plans. Maybe you wanted to protect your precious reputation. Mrs. Croft sobbed, interrupting. I confessed to Sir Reginald about my ancestors' shame. He promised to keep it quiet, but someone knew. Someone used the whispers to torment him. Poirot's gaze swept the room, his voice low but commanding. We, the whispers. A gramophone, hidden in the pines, amplifying voices to mimic ghosts. A clever trick, but not flawless. The button from the glade, navy with an anchor, belongs to Clara's coat, no? Clara gasped, touching her sleeve instinctively. That's impossible. I lost that button weeks ago. Someone took it. Jap held up the syringe. And this? Out. Her eyes flashed. I loved my husband, Monsieur Poirot. I'd never harm him. The room fell silent. The fires crackled the only sound, until the whispers outside grew louder. Reveal. The liar. Hastings shivered, whispering, Poirot, it's as if the pines are watching us. No, my friend, Poirot replied. They are but trees, manipulated by a cunning mind. The killer is here, weaving this tapestry of deceit. He paused, his eyes scanning each face. We have motive, Jonathan's debts, Clara's secrets, Thorne's loans, Croft's shame, Evelyn's fear. We have means, a revolver, a sedative, a passage. But opportunity, that lies in the shadows. As he spoke, a soft thud came from the hall. A note slipped under the door. Jap retrieved it, reading aloud. Meet in the pines at midnight. The truth awaits. The paper was unmarked, the writing unfamiliar. The suspects exchanged glances, fear and suspicion mingling. A trap? Hastings asked, his hand on his revolver. Peut-être, Poirot said, his voice calm but resolute. Or a challenge. The killer grows bold, believing they have outwitted Hercule Poirot. Mais non, we shall prepare. He turned to Jap. Station men in the pines, discreetly. We go to meet this truth, but with caution. The suspects dispersed, their footsteps echoing in the cavernous hall. Poirot lingered, examining the note, its ink fresh, its paper torn from a ledger in the study. Curieux, he murmured. The killer invites us to the pines, where the whispers are loudest. Why? To confess, or to strike again? Hastings leaned close. It's risky, Poirot. What if it's a lure to get you alone? Poirot's smile was faint but confident. The little gray cells are never alone, my friend. They see what others miss. The glove, the syringe, the button, the letters. They are of Hercule Poirot, Captain Arthur Hastings, and Inspector Jap as they stood in the hidden glade, their lanterns casting feeble beams into the fog. The manor loomed behind them, its windows dark, save for a single flickering light in the study. A reminder of the murder that had brought them here. The clock had struck midnight. The hour appointed by the mysterious note slipped under the drawing-room door, and the trio waited, senses alert, for the figure who had promised to reveal the truth, or perhaps to silence it forever. Poirot's black patent shoes sank slightly into the soft earth, but his posture remained impeccable, his cane planted firmly, his green eyes scanning the shadows. Mes amis, he whispered, his Belgian accent a soft cadence in the stillness. We are close to the heart of this mystery. The note. It is a challenge, but also a confession. The killer believes they have outwitted us, but the little gray cells, they are not so easily deceived. Hastings gripped his revolver, his breath visible in the cold. Poirot, this feels like a trap. That note, unsigned, torn from a ledger. It's too convenient. What if they mean to finish us off? Jap, crouched behind a tree, his own pistol drawn, grunted. I've got 2 men stationed in the pines watching the paths. If anyone tries anything, we'll nab them. But I don't like this, Poirot. Those whispers, they're louder tonight. Almost human. Précisément, Poirot replied, his mustache twitching. Human, indeed. The gramophone we found, its wires leading to the trees. It is no ghost that speaks, but a machine, amplifying guilt or fear. The killer uses the legend of the pines to mask their movements. Écoutez, he tilted his head, listening as the whispers grew clearer. The truth dies tonight. A rustle in the underbrush snapped their attention to the east. A figure emerged from the mist, cloaked in a dark coat, a revolver glinting in their hand. The lantern light caught the face. Lady Evelyn had wiped clean. The window, shattered inward, suggested an intruder. But it was you, madame, who broke it from outside, using a silencer to muffle the shot. The locked door, you accessed the study via the secret passage behind the bookshelf, locking it from within to complete the illusion of suicide. Jap's eyes widened, but he remained silent, his men inching closer through the pines. Lady Evelyn's lips curled into a sneer. "Clever, monsieur, but why? Why would I kill my husband?" Poirot's gaze was unrelenting. "Motive, madame, is threefold: love, greed, and shame. First, love, or its betrayal. You and Dr. Thorne, your consultations were more than medical, no? Sir Reginald suspected an affair, confronted you. Second, greed. He was rewriting his will, perhaps to disinherit Jonathan, your stepson, whom you favored. Not as a son, but as a lover, peut-être. The sapphire bracelet from Jonathan's room, a gift from you, hidden to protect your secret. Third, shame. The diary revealed your ancestor, not Mrs. Croft's, as the true accomplice to Captain Edmund's betrayal in 1917. Sir Reginald's memoir would expose your lineage as traitors, ruining your social standing. You could not allow it. Lady Evelyn's hand trembled, the revolver wavering. "You have no proof. The whispers, the diary, they're just stories." "Non, madame," Poirot countered, producing the navy button from his pocket. "This, from your coat, found in the glade where you buried the wartime letters. The gramophone, hidden in the pines, played recordings of your voice, disguised as ghostly accusations to torment Sir Reginald and mask your movements. The syringe stolen from Thorne's bag, planted to implicate him. The glove, too small for Jonathan, was yours, stained with blood to divert suspicion. And the note tonight? Your final gambit to lure me here, to silence the one who sees through your web." The whispers surged, a deafening chorus. "Murderer, attached." "Mon Dieu," he murmured. "A woman driven by fear and pride. The pines did not betray her. She betrayed herself." Back at the manor, the suspects gathered in the drawing room, stunned by the revelation. Jonathan sank into a chair, his face ashen. "Mother, how could she?" Clara's eyes were wide, her voice trembling. "She used my letters, planted the button. I thought she cared for me." Thorne adjusted his spectacles, his tic gone. I loved her, but I never knew. She used me too." Mrs. Croft wept softly. "The pines stopped accusing me. It was her all along." Poirot addressed them, his voice calm but authoritative. "The truth is a bitter medicine, mes amis. Lady Evelyn wove a tapestry of lies. The diary to protect her lineage, the affair to secure her future, the whispers to mask her crime. She forged a new will, ensuring Jonathan's inheritance. But Sir Reginald discovered it. His death was her solution." Hastings marveled. "Brilliant, Poirot. The passage, the gramophone. How did you know?" "The little gray cells, Hastings," Poirot replied, tapping his temple. "They see the pattern. The broken window inward. The sedative excessive. The whispers too precise. Each clue pointed to a mind that planned but faltered in execution." Jap clapped Poirot's shoulder. "Scotland Yard owes you, old chap. We'll take it from here. Statements, evidence, the lot." As the suspects dispersed, Poirot lingered, gazing out at the pines, now silent in the lifting mist. "The whispers are quiet," he said softly. "But the human heart, it speaks louder than any tree," she said. The manner settled into an uneasy peace, the weight of revelation lifting but leaving scars. Poirot packed his cane, his mind already turning to the next puzzle, but the pine's final whisper lingered in memory. Justice served. The confrontation was over, but the echoes of truth would resonate long after the night. Leaned against the mantel, his expression a mix of relief and disbelief, while Inspector Japp stood near the door, coordinating with his men to secure evidence. The pines outside were silent, their whispers stilled with the destruction of Lady Evelyn's gramophone, a mechanical trick that had masqueraded as supernatural vengeance. The air carried only the scent of damp earth and pine needles, a cleansing contrast to the oppressive tension of the past days. Poirot's little gray cells had unraveled the mystery of Sir Reginald Harrington's murder. A gunshot staged as suicide, a locked study, a shattered window, but the task remained to tie the loose threads, to ensure each suspect understood their role in the tapestry of deception. "Mes amis," Poirot began, his voice a calm beacon in the storm of emotions. "The truth has been revealed, and Lady Evelyn stands accused. But the puzzle is not complete without clarity. Let us revisit the threads, to ensure no doubt remains. The murder of Sir Reginald was a crime of calculation, masked by red herrings and fueled by motives of love, greed, and shame. I, Hercule Poirot, will elucidate." Jonathan looked up, his voice hoarse. "Mother, I can't believe she did it. She always seemed so strong, so in control." Poirot nodded, his gaze sympathetic but firm. "Oui, Monsieur Jonathan. Her strength was her weapon, and her downfall. Let us begin with the crime. Sir Reginald was found in his study, a bullet in his temple, a revolver in his hand. The door was locked, the key inside, the window shattered inward. A note. "I cannot bear the whispers any longer," suggested suicide. But the little gray cells, they protested. The revolver, wiped clean save for his prints, was fired from a distance. Traces of sedative in his tea. Nitrazepam, excessive, dulled his senses. The window, broken from outside, was no burglary but a stage. Lady Evelyn entered via the secret passage behind the bookshelf. Shot him through the window, small for him. Hers, stained to implicate her stepson. The syringe, stolen from Dr. Thorne's bag, planted in the pines to cast suspicion on him. The navy button from her own coat, dropped in the glade where she buried the wartime letters. Letters proving her ancestor, not Mrs. Croft's, aided Captain Edmund's treason. She forged a new will, ensuring Jonathan's inheritance. But Sir Reginald discovered it. His memoir, exposing her lineage, threatened her social standing. She killed to protect her secrets. Mrs. Croft sobbed softly. "I thought the pines accused me, my great-uncle's shame. But it was her voice, her trick. I confessed to Sir Reginald, and he promised to protect me." Poirot's gaze softened. "Madame Croft, your loyalty was exploited. Lady Evelyn used your fear to divert suspicion, planting the letters to suggest your motive. But you are innocent." Thorne stopped pacing, his tic subdued, his voice bitter. And me? She used my affection, my debts. I thought she cared for me. "Hélas, doctor," Poirot said. "You were a pawn. Your sedatives, stolen and overdosed, were her weapon. Your meetings, though perhaps innocent, gave her a shield. You face no murder charge, but the medical board may question your ethics." Jonathan stood, his fists clenched. "She played us all. The bracelet, I bought it for her, not Clara. She said it was a token of our bond, but it was manipulation. I'm clear now, aren't I?" Jap nodded, flipping through his notebook. "You're in the clear, lad. The evidence, button, syringe, glove, silencer, all points to Lady Evelyn. Her prints are on the revolver, and the ledger page from the note matches her handwriting. She's confessed, too, broke down in the cell, ranting about the Pines betraying her." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Vraiment? The confession seals the case, but let us clarify the red herrings. The glove, meant to frame Jonathan, was a misstep. Its size betrayed her. The syringe, a distraction for Thorne, for Jonathan. Greed for the estate, shame for her lineage, drove her to murder. She used the legend of the Pines to cloak her crime. But the little gray cells, they see through shadows. Justice is served." Hastings marveled. "Brilliant, Poirot. The passage, the silencer, the gramophone. You saw it all when we saw only chaos." Poirot's smile was modest. "The mind, Hastings, must order the chaos. The clues were there. The window's inward break, the sedative's excess, the passage's footprints. Each was a thread, and Lady Evelyn wove them poorly." Jap clapped his hands, signaling his men. "Right, that's it. We'll wrap up statements, ship the evidence to London. Lady Evelyn's headed for trial. Murder, forgery, the works. Scotland Yard owes you, Poirot." The suspects dispersed, their footsteps heavy in the cavernous hall. Jonathan retreated to his room, the weight of his mother's betrayal etched into his face. Clara packed her belongings, her resignation letter already penned. Thorne prepared to face his professional reckoning, his medical bag a reminder of his missteps. Mrs. Croft returned to the kitchen, vowing to retire to a quieter life, free of the Pines' shadow. Poirot lingered by the window, gazing at the now silent Pines. "Mon Dieu," he murmured. "The human heart is a labyrinth. Lady Evelyn sought to bury her sins, but the truth, it rises like the sun." Hastings joined him, his voice soft. "The whispers, are they truly gone, Poirot? Or was there something more?" Poirot's eyes twinkled. "The gramophone is destroyed, my friend. But guilt, it whispers in the heart long after the Pines fall silent. This case is closed, but the echoes remain." The manor settled into an uneasy peace, its secrets laid bare, its shadows retreating. Poirot packed his cane, his mind already turning to the next puzzle. But one whisper lingered in memory, polished to a mirror shine. His mustache a perfect crescent, his green eyes reflecting a satisfaction tempered by the melancholy of human frailty. Captain Arthur Hastings, ever the faithful companion, adjusted his hat as he prepared for their departure, his suitcase resting by the oak doors. "It's over, Poirot," he said, his voice a mix of relief and awe. "You've done it again, unraveled a puzzle that had us all stumped. Lady Evelyn, I never would have guessed she was capable of such a thing." Poirot inclined his head, his cane tapping softly on the parquet floor. "Mon ami, the heart is a labyrinth, and even the most elegant of minds can be led astray by love, greed, or shame. Lady Evelyn wove a web of deception, but the little gray cells, they see through the threads. Toujours it is logic that prevails." Inspector Japp approached, his overcoat slung over one arm, his notebook tucked away. "Poirot, old chap, Scotland Yard owes you a debt. Lady Evelyn's in custody, headed for trial. The evidence is airtight, prints on the silencer, the forged will, the button, the lot. You've saved us a headache and given the Harringtons closure, such as it is." He extended a hand which Poirot shook with a gracious nod. "Merci, Inspector," Poirot replied. "But the closure, it is bittersweet. A family is broken, a legacy tarnished. Yet justice she is served, and the pines, they whisper no more." The remaining suspects, Jonathan Harrington, Clara Beaumont, Dr. Elias Thorne, and Mrs. Agnes Croft, had gathered in the drawing room one final time, their faces etched with the weight of revelation. Jonathan, now the master of Whispering Pines, stood by the window, gazing at the pines with a mixture of sorrow and resolve. "I'll sell the place," he said quietly, his voice rough from lack of sleep. "Too many ghosts. Not the kind in the stories, but the kind that live in memory. Mother, she ruined us all. Clara, her bags packed and untainted by your mother's crimes. Mademoiselle Beaumont, your honesty will guide you to a better path. Dr. Thorne, your candor may yet redeem you. Madame Croft, your loyalty was noble, though tested. The mystery of Sir Reginald's death is solved, and you may all move forward." Hastings, ever curious, leaned close. "Poirot, the whispers, were they truly just the gramophone? Or was there something more?" The pines felt alive at times. Poirot's eyes twinkled, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Hélas, Hastings, you seek the supernatural where logic suffices. The gramophone, hidden in the pines, amplified Lady Evelyn's recordings, words of accusation, crafted to torment Sir Reginald and mask her movements. The wires, the scratches, the device itself, all mechanical. Yet the human mind, it adds its own whispers. Guilt, fear, shame, they echo louder than any machine." Japp nodded, his pragmatism returning. "The gramophone's in pieces now, evidence for the trial. We found the recordings, her voice, distorted to sound ghostly. Clever, but not clever enough to fool you, Poirot." "Merci, Inspector," Poirot said, bowing slightly. The clues were many. The window shattered inward to suggest an intruder, the sedative excessive in the teacup, the secret passage used to stage a locked room, the button dropped carelessly in the glade, the glove, the syringe, the letters. They were red herrings, meant to point to others, but they betrayed her hand. Lady Evelyn killed to protect her ancestors' secret, to secure the estate, to hide her affair. But truth, it is like the sun. It cannot stay hidden. The servants bustled, preparing the manor for a quieter future. Jonathan planned to liquidate assets, settle his debts, and start anew elsewhere. Clara booked a train to London, her typing skills already in demand at a publishing house. Thorne faced an uncertain future. His reputation in question, but his read. The window's inward break, the sedative's trace, the passage's footprints. Each was a note in a symphony of crime, and Lady Evelyn played it poorly. Japp joined them, his men loading evidence into a police van. The trial will be a spectacle. Lady Evelyn Harrington, a murderer. The papers will love it. You're off then? Back to London? Oui, Inspector, Poirot replied. The train awaits, and other puzzles call. But Whispering Pines, it will linger in memory. A reminder that truth speaks even when pines are silent. They stepped outside, the gravel crunching underfoot as they approached the waiting car. The pines stood tall, their branches swaying gently, no longer whispering accusations. The manor receded behind them, its spires fading into the mist. In the car, Hastings glanced back, his voice soft. Do you think the pines will ever whisper again, Poirot? Or was it all her doing? Poirot chuckled, a rare warmth in his tone. The pines, they are but trees, Hastings. They speak what we give them, fear, guilt, or hope. Lady Evelyn's gramophone is silenced, but the heart, it whispers eternally. For now justice is served, and we leave Whispering Pines to its peace. The car wound through the misty lanes, the village of Eldridge Hollow coming into view, its quaint station a gateway back to the world beyond. The train's whistle sounded, a mournful echo of their arrival, and Poirot settled into his seat, his mind already turning to the next challenge. Whispering Pines faded into the distance, its secrets laid bare, its story concluded. Yet in quiet moments one might imagine a final whisper, not of accusation, but of resolution, carried on the wind as the manor stood silent, its ghosts at rest.